You've had a chance now to respond to a sample, read it, make some marks. How did you go? I'd like to show you what I thought of this second sample. So immediately when I start reading, I want to study environmental systems because, great, she's told us right away what it is she wants to study. The second sentence I find interesting. It's kind of a funny juxtaposition of personal response and emotion about something and then some sort of clinical descriptions. I grew up in a small town and I heard a lot of stories about the threat of algal blooms on the river and the financial effects of introduced species. So I like the way that I'm imagining this person growing up in a small town and learning and discovering about science. And I like the fact that she's showing me her intention and her knowledge by talking about specific things like algal blooms and financial effects of introduced species. She's already demonstrating to us her knowledge of the field. Then she continues in a chronological fashion. So it's always, if you're able to make your answer into a story, it's gold. It's a really powerful way to get your message across. And she's able to do that a little bit here in the second part. By year 10, I knew I wanted to go into chemistry, and later that year, I went on a Women in Engineering weekend at a university. At this time, I visited a water treatment facility and became fascinated by the many ways the council was reusing its wastewater. So again here, we're seeing this interest that started or was developing in year 10, and that this student is now pursuing different paths that are going to get her to where she wants to go. So she's chosen in year 10 to go to a university activity. Midway through this year, I changed my focus to chemical engineering because I felt that environmental engineering didn't have enough chemistry for my liking. This really stands out to me because I know that this student will do what she needs to do in order to pursue her own learning goals. So the love of chemistry, finding that with environmental she just wasn't getting it, there's this thing called chemical engineering, that's what I'm going to do instead. That really stands out to me as if I'm a faculty member on a scholarship committee, because I know that this student can take charge of her own learning. And she's not going to come in and sort of find that university is not meeting her needs and drop out. All she's going to do is find the course that she really is going to serve her well. Now if we look at the end, this is the part that perhaps for me is one of the weaker parts of the response, and if I were working with this student, I'd make some suggestions here about improvements that she could make. One thing she does do that's positive is just really echo the language of the question, or repeat the language of the question by saying, I hope that in studying this I will, and that's really signalling that she's answering the question. So that part's a positive. But she says, I will gain knowledge and qualifications which will allow me to either work in rehabilitating the environment after mining or employment at a water treatment plant. So on the one hand, these are quite specific things, which is good. On the other, she says, I will gain knowledge and qualifications. And that's kind of a given, isn't it, when you're going to university? And that, I think, would strike a reader as sounding a little bit uncertain or a little bit unclear about what this degree could offer, and that's never a good thing. It's especially not a good thing to leave the reader with any uncertainties or doubts. The positive thing at the end here, though, is that she has named two quite specific roles or jobs that she could have after university. Environmental rehabilitation in a mining area, or employment at a water treatment plant. So that's a positive in that it lets the university know she's done some research. She understands where this degree could take her, and so she's more likely to be satisfied with it and therefore stay with the university.